Some betrayals cut so deep, you don't realize you're bleeding until it's too late. And some secrets, they're buried so far beneath the surface that digging them up might cost you everything. Welcome to Tea and Payback, where the tea is hot, the secrets are messy, and karma always finds her way home. Before I go on, just a quick reminder. I share new life stories every day. If you enjoy them, subscribing and liking the video would mean a lot to me. Now sit down, pour yourself a cup of tea, let's continue. My name is Maya. I'm 32 years old, and for 3 years I believed my husband was gone forever. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. Wrong about who I could trust. Wrong about how far people would go for money. And dead wrong about what really happened that night Marcus disappeared. The rain that fell on Seattle that November evening wasn't just cold. It cut through fabric and skin like frozen razors. The kind of weather that makes you question why anyone chooses to live in the Pacific Northwest. I sat hunched on the concrete steps outside the Harrington family estate, my arms wrapped tight around my son Leo, who was 5 years old and shaking in his sleep. Thunder cracked overhead, tearing the silence apart and rattling what was left of my shattered heart. Behind us, the iron gates had slammed shut with a finality that echoed through my bones. That massive 4-story house where I'd spent the last 3 years sacrificing everything had just locked me out like discarded trash. Inside those walls, my mother-in-law Vivian Harrington stood somewhere in the warmth, probably sipping wine and celebrating her victory. Next to her would be my father-in-law Gerald, silent as always, complicit in every cruelty through his calculated indifference. Vivian's words still burned in my ears, sharp enough to draw blood. "Get out. Take that brat and leave my property. You're nothing but a leech, Maya. You and your son have been bleeding this family dry since the day my Marcus vanished." She'd thrown my battered suitcase into the rain-soaked yard, my clothes and belongings scattered like garbage across the flooded lawn. Gerald just stood in the doorway, turning his face away, his silence somehow more damning than any insult. What had I done to deserve this? What crime had I committed during those 3 agonizing years since Marcus disappeared? From the moment my husband vanished on what was supposed to be a routine business trip to Chicago, I'd sworn to honor his memory, to care for his parents, to hold this fractured family together through sheer force of will. For 3 years, I transformed myself from a bookish graduate student into something I barely recognized. I woke before sunrise to prepare elaborate meals Vivian would criticize. I cleaned every inch of that house until my hands cracked and bled. I worked double shifts at a fulfillment center, my entire paycheck handed directly to Vivian every month without keeping a single dollar for Leo or myself. I endured everything. When Vivian complained my cooking was too bland, I learned her recipes from scratch. When she mocked my simple clothes and called me unsophisticated, I wore the same 3 outfits on rotation without complaint. When she blamed me for only giving her 1 grandson, for not producing more heirs before Marcus disappeared, I swallowed my grief and stayed silent. I thought if I just tried harder, if I showed them genuine love and dedication, they'd eventually see me as family. They'd love Leo and me the way Marcus had. I was so incredibly naive. Marcus used to defend me from his mother's attacks. I could still hear his gentle voice echoing through my memories. "Mom, ease up on her. Maya's still adjusting. Give her time." He was the kind of man who gave his entire salary to his parents to manage, keeping just enough to occasionally take me out for my favorite Thai food. He worked himself to exhaustion so his parents and I could have comfortable lives. And then came that terrible morning when he kissed Leo's forehead and hugged me tight before heading to the airport. "I'll only be gone a few days, babe. Be good, you too." Those were the last words I ever heard him speak. His flight encountered severe turbulence over Lake Michigan. The plane went down in heavy fog. No wreckage. No bodies. No closure. Marcus simply evaporated from existence, leaving behind a void that consumed everything. Since that day, my life became a living nightmare. Vivian, the woman I'd once respected and tried so hard to please, transformed into something monstrous. She showed zero compassion for the daughter-in-law who'd just lost her husband. In her eyes, Leo and I became parasites, burdens she was forced to tolerate. She blamed me for everything, called me cursed, said I'd killed her son through some cosmic bad luck, accused me of freeloading even though I was working myself to the bone, supporting the household. And tonight, because 5-year-old Leo accidentally knocked over Vivian's prized porcelain vase, she'd found her excuse. She used that broken vase as justification to throw us out into the storm without a cent to our names, without anywhere to go. I stumbled through the rain with Leo in my arms, dragging that heavy suitcase across wet pavement. The sound it made scraping along the ground matched the emptiness inside me. My tears mixed with rainwater, everything cold and bitter. Where could we go? Back to my parents in rural Idaho? They were elderly and struggling themselves, barely scraping by on Social Security. I couldn't become another burden they couldn't afford. I kept walking like a ghost until my feet gave out in front of the downtown Seattle bus terminal. The sickly yellow glow of fluorescent lights illuminated other broken lives just like mine. I found a corner under an awning, crouched down, and covered Leo with my thin jacket. He stirred in his sleep, pressing closer to me for warmth. "Mommy, I'm cold." I pulled him tighter, trying to transfer whatever heat my body still held. My heart felt like it was being carved open with a dull blade. "My son, my beautiful boy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I can't give you a real home." I sat there in that loud, freezing terminal feeling, completely hopeless. Where would Leo and I go from here? In that crushing darkness, I could only whisper a desperate prayer to my lost husband. "Marcus, wherever you are, can you see what's happening to your son? Please somehow protect us." The terminal at night existed as its own universe of desperation. Failed lives and exhausted faces created a symphony of misery. Garbled announcements mixed with vendors shouting, bus engines roaring, and somewhere in the distance a child whimpering. Everything blurred together into chaos and grief. I leaned against the cold concrete wall, every gust of wind carrying dampness that made me shiver uncontrollably. I held Leo even tighter, trying to give him whatever warmth I had left. He slept fitfully, his small shoulders occasionally twitching. Probably nightmares about his grandmother's screaming. I stared up at the pitch-black sky. No stars, no moon, just emptiness. Leo's future and mine looked exactly the same right now, dark and uncertain. Where would we go? What would we do? Those questions drilled into my skull without answers. I felt completely useless, unable to even provide my son with a warm place to sleep. Despair rose up my throat. I pressed my forehead against my knees and bit my lip hard to stop from screaming. I couldn't break down. I had to stay strong for Leo. Right at that moment, when I was closest to complete collapse, a harsh beam of light suddenly cut through the rain and shined directly into our corner. I reflexively raised my hand to shield my eyes. A smooth engine purr, distinctly different from the rumbling buses, caught my attention. A sleek black Lexus SUV rolled to a stop just feet away from where Leo and I huddled. The vehicle looked like it belonged to another world entirely, completely out of place in this grimy, desperate environment. Unease prickled up my spine. Who would come here at this hour in such an expensive car? The window lowered slowly, street light revealing a familiar yet strange face. Behind the wheel sat a young woman with fashionably highlighted auburn hair and dark burgundy lipstick. She wore oversized sunglasses despite it being the middle of the night. I froze. My heart stopped beating. It was Riley, Marcus's younger sister. I hadn't seen her in 3 years, not since Marcus's memorial service. Back then she'd been a rebellious teenager who dressed provocatively and always looked at me with sideways resentment. She'd never called me sister-in-law with any respect. After the memorial, I'd heard she ran away from home, living some reckless lifestyle somewhere, rarely returning. Vivian cursed Riley's name constantly, calling her a disgrace who brought shame to the family. Now Riley sat there in that expensive car with a completely different presence. No longer the disrespectful rebel from years ago, but radiating a frightening composure and confidence. She removed the sunglasses. Her sharp eyes looked directly at me without emotion. "Get in," she said flatly. Not a question. A command. I stayed frozen, my head spinning. Why was she here? How did she know Leo and I were at this bus terminal? Had Vivian called her? Was this another trap set by the Harrington family? I clutched Leo tighter, my eyes full of suspicion. "What are you doing here?" Riley didn't answer my question. She just repeated herself, voice slightly more impatient. I said, "Get in. Do you want your son to freeze to death out here?" Her words struck my deepest fear. I looked down at Leo, whose face had gone pale from the cold. I couldn't let my son suffer any more. But was it safe to follow her? As if reading my thoughts, Riley sighed, a sound that contained both exhaustion and impatience. "You don't have to be afraid. I'm not my mother. I'm not here to hurt you." She paused, looking deep into my eyes, then said something that made my entire body go rigid. "Get in. I have a secret I need to show you. A secret about Marcus." Marcus. That name shot through me like electricity. My heart, frozen with despair, suddenly began pounding violently again. What kind of secret? He'd been gone for 3 years. What secrets could possibly remain? But what if there was something? What if this tiny, insane hope was real? What if she knew something? What if his disappearance wasn't as straightforward as everyone believed? I searched Riley's eyes and found no deception. Only deep sadness and strange determination. I had no other choice. Even if this was a trap, I had to take the chance for that tiny spark of hope about my husband, for a warm shelter for my son. I gritted my teeth, lifted Leo, and dragged the suitcase toward the car. Riley said nothing, just opened the back door. I carefully placed Leo on the soft leather seats, then climbed in myself. The door closed, separating us from the cold, chaotic world outside. Warm air from the heater circulated through the car, driving away the chill. The car pulled smoothly into the sparse night traffic. We drove in complete silence. I didn't ask where she was taking us, and she offered no explanation. I just stared out the window. Seattle at night, blurred by rain, looked foreign and surreal. I tried to organize my confused thoughts. Riley had changed dramatically, from an indifferent sister-in-law to this mysterious, powerful woman. Where did she get money for this car? And what was this secret she mentioned? The car finally stopped in front of a luxury high-rise in an upscale downtown district, somewhere I would never have imagined setting foot. Riley led Leo and me into an apartment on the 20th floor. The space was enormous, immaculate, fully furnished. A completely different universe from the cramped room Leo and I had occupied before. "You and your nephew can rest here. You're safe tonight," Riley said, placing keys on the table. Her voice remained cool but carried a hint of tenderness. She looked at Leo, sleeping soundly on the bed, then turned to me. Her expression was complicated, mixing pity with resolve. "Tomorrow morning, once you've calmed down, I'll show you the real reason Marcus couldn't come back." The luxury apartment sank into silence, broken only by the gentle hum of climate control. I sat on the plush leather sofa, staring at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle's glittering skyline as it slowly woke after the rainstorm. Dawn's first weak rays broke through gray clouds, illuminating steel and glass towers, but couldn't warm my frozen heart. Last night had been the first time in 3 years that Leo and I slept in a soft bed, in a warm and secure room, yet I couldn't close my eyes. Every word, every image replayed in my thoughts. Vivian screaming, Gerald's indifferent stare, the desperation at the bus terminal, then Riley's mysterious appearance. Everything felt like a chaotic, senseless dream sequence. Leo still slept deeply in the bedroom, probably exhausted, or maybe because this place felt too peaceful compared to what he'd just endured. My son slept with his small lips slightly curved in a faint smile. Looking at him made my heart twist. What would his future hold? He'd lost his father and been cast out by his own grandparents. I was his only anchor now. I couldn't give up. A soft click of the key sounded. Riley entered carrying a bag with still warm breakfast. She'd changed clothes, wearing an elegant cream business suit that made her look mature and professional. She set the bag on the table and handed me a glass of warm water. "Eat something. You haven't had anything all night." I shook my head. My throat was dry, but I had no appetite. "I won't eat. Tell me what this secret is you mentioned last night." Riley looked at me. Her gaze was no longer cold like before, but filled with deep compassion. She pulled a chair over and sat across from me. "I know you're in shock. I am too. For 3 years I haven't been able to sleep peacefully. But before I tell you, promise me something. No matter how brutal the truth is, you have to stay calm. For Leo. And for Marcus." When she mentioned my husband, my heart ached again. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Fine. I promise." Riley said nothing more, but pulled out a small digital recorder and a thin folder from her designer bag. She placed the device on the table and pressed play. A faint recording began, the sound quality poor like it had been secretly captured. But I recognized the voices immediately. A deep man's voice and a sharp, nagging woman's voice. Gerald and Vivian. "Stop constantly berating the daughter-in-law. Aren't you afraid she'll get suspicious?" Gerald's voice sounded irritated. "So what if she gets suspicious? What can that small-town girl do? It's a blessing I even let her stay in this house. My son is gone. She's worthless now. Can't you see? She and her brat are just 2 extra mouths draining this household every day." Vivian's voice was sharp as broken glass. "But she's the mother of our grandson." "Grandson? Wake up. Marcus is gone. This family line is finished. I'm telling you, I'll find a way to get rid of both of them when the time is right. This house belongs to us. Marcus's inheritance belongs to us too. I won't give that woman a single penny." The recording ended. I sat frozen, my hands clenched so tight my nails drew blood without me noticing. So that's what I was to them. A parasite. My sincerity, my sacrifices over 3 years, were nothing but pathetic stupidity in their eyes. They didn't just hate me. They'd been planning to throw me out all along. Their supposed love for their only grandson had been nothing but performance. Riley watched me, her voice dropping. "See, that's their true nature. I secretly planted this recording device in Dad's study almost a year ago. I'd suspected for a while, but only when I heard those words did I truly believe Marcus's disappearance was no accident." She pushed the folder toward me. "Look at this." I opened the folder with trembling hands. The first page was a bank statement from Marcus's account. I recognized it immediately as his salary account, but what shocked me was the withdrawal history. Shortly before his fatal business trip, a massive amount had been withdrawn, almost $200,000. Next to it was the recipient's signature. I couldn't forget that handwriting. Gerald Harrington's signature. 200,000? Why so much? And why did Gerald withdraw it? I stammered, my head spinning. That was Marcus's entire savings. "I investigated," Riley said. "The money was immediately transferred to another account after withdrawal. The account holder." Riley paused, looking directly into my eyes. "My mother, Vivian Harrington." The next page was a statement from a stock brokerage. Vivian had invested the entire $200,000 in high-risk stocks. She'd lost everything. Within days, that enormous sum vanished almost completely. My world collapsed. The scattered puzzle pieces fit together into a horrifying picture. Marcus's disappearance. The money withdrawal. My in-laws' changed behavior afterward. "I still don't have direct proof," Riley said bitterly. "But I believe they hurt Marcus because of this money. Maybe he discovered they'd secretly taken his savings and gambled it away. There was a confrontation, and then..." She didn't finish, but I understood. Tears streamed down my face again, but these weren't tears of hurt. They were tears of pure rage and the deepest pain imaginable. My husband, the man I loved, may have been harmed by his own parents over money. This truth was more brutal than anything I could have imagined. They hadn't just stolen my husband. They destroyed my last bit of faith in family bonds. The whole room fell into terrifying silence, broken only by my quiet sobbing. Every word from Riley, every number on those bank statements, pierced my already scarred heart like invisible needles. Marcus, my husband, this gentle and devoted man, could he truly have been hurt by the people he loved and trusted most? I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence lay cold and merciless before me. I pressed my face against the table, my shoulders shaking. The powerlessness, the agony, the fury flooded my chest until I could barely breathe. For 3 years I'd lived inside a lie. I'd mourned what I thought was an accident, but it was likely a carefully covered murder. Riley said nothing, just gently placed her hand on my shoulder and patted softly. Her silent comfort carried more power than any words. She wasn't just the sister-in-law I'd once resented. She was Marcus's only blood relative who stood on my side in this fight. After a long time, when I'd calmed enough to only weep softly, I lifted my head. My swollen eyes looked at Riley. Why? Why are you only telling me this now? And why are you helping me? That was my biggest question. Why was this seemingly indifferent, rebellious girl doing all this in secret? Riley gazed out the window, her expression distant as if sinking into painful memories. Her voice lost its sharp edge and filled with profound sadness. Because Marcus is the only person in this world who ever truly loved me, she began, telling a story I'd never heard. It turned out behind that rebellious exterior was a wounded soul. I wasn't born a son. That was my mother's biggest disappointment. She'd wanted a second son to strengthen the family legacy. When I was born a girl, she nearly lost her mind. My childhood was marked by undeserved beatings and constant comparisons to Marcus. In her eyes, I was a worthless daughter, a complete failure. Tears began running down Riley's cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. Only Marcus stood by me, protected me. Every time Mom hit me, he'd jump in front to shield me, taking the blows himself. He secretly saved his allowance to buy me little things I liked. He was the only one who listened to me, who believed I wasn't a waste of space. She wept. It was the first time I'd seen her cry, the tears of an abandoned child starving for love. When Marcus disappeared, I didn't believe it. I couldn't accept that someone so careful could just have an accident. I started watching our parents' behavior. Instead of grief, I only saw fear, worry, and a strange sense of relief. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong. So that was it. Love for her deceased brother drove everything Jordan did. She wasn't indifferent. She only used that rough exterior to hide her vulnerable heart. A wave of compassion and respect flowed through me. So what have you been doing these 3 years? I asked. I ran away from home. Riley wiped her tears. I couldn't live in a house where I suspected my own parents of something so evil. I took every kind of job, from bartending to retail. With the money I earned, I hired a private investigator to conduct secret inquiries. This car, this apartment, they belonged to a good friend who's been helping me. He was also a close friend of Marcus's. Riley's story stunned me. She'd fought alone for 3 years, a silent and dangerous battle. While I'd surrendered to my fate and cried, she, a young woman, had the courage to stand up and seek truth. What do we do now? I asked, my voice no longer weak. The look I gave Riley was full of determination. We can't let them get away with this. The flame of hatred and the hunger for justice blazed inside me. Weakness and fear transformed into iron will. I was no longer the meek, enduring Maya of yesterday. Riley looked at me, hope sparking in her eyes. I knew you'd say that. I've prepared everything. But this won't be easy. My parents aren't simple people. They have money. They have connections. We need more evidence, irrefutable proof to expose their crimes. Riley's words sounded like a battle cry. I knew from this moment forward, we were allies, comrades who would walk this path together until the end. Marcus was very careful, Riley continued thoughtfully. I believe that before anything happened, he must have left a clue. Something only his closest people could find. Her words were like a key unlocking a forgotten compartment in my memory. I suddenly remembered that about a week before his business trip, Marcus had given me a small, intricately carved wooden box. He'd said it was a memory box for us. He'd instructed me to hide it carefully and said something very strange. If I can't return one day, open it. Everything you need to know is inside. At the time, I'd thought he was just being dramatic and scolded him not to talk like that. I'd hidden the box deep in my closet under the old suitcase and nearly forgotten its existence. "There is a box," I cried excitedly, my voice trembling. I quickly told Riley about the memory box and Marcus's cryptic instruction. When I finished, Riley's eyes lit up. "Where is it? Where's that box, Maya?" "It's still in that house," I answered quietly. "I hid it under the old suitcase in the closet of our bedroom." My answer was like a punch to our newly ignited hope. That house was enemy territory now. I'd been expelled. How could I possibly go back to retrieve the box? Besides, after 3 years, was it even still there? Or had Vivian accidentally discarded it while cleaning? Riley recognized the problem. She frowned, pacing back and forth. Her face showed deep thought. "No, that won't work. We have to get it back. I'm certain everything's inside. But how do we get into the house now?" We sat in silence, both lost in thought. Breaking in was too dangerous. During the day, Vivian and Gerald were almost always home. At night, the street wasn't deserted. Even the slightest noise would expose us. I began hesitantly, a bold thought forming. Or I go back. "Are you insane?" Riley cried, turning to me. "If you go back, you're walking into a trap. My mother's furious she can't find you. If you return, she won't show mercy." "Exactly because she's furious. That's our opportunity," I said, my voice calmer and more determined. "She threw me out because she despises me. But deep down, she still thinks I'm stupid and easy to manipulate. I'll go back not to resist, but to beg forgiveness." Riley looked at me, astonished, not understanding my intention yet. I explained further. "I'll play the role of the repentant wife, the pathetic daughter-in-law who's realized her mistakes. I'll cry and beg her to take me back. I'll say I can't survive without the family, that I can't raise Leo alone. I'll say I've learned my lesson, and from now on I'll obey her completely. Given her arrogant and controlling nature, she'll probably soften. She won't pass up the chance to continue tormenting and humiliating me. She'll take me back, but as an unpaid servant." After hearing my plan, Riley was quiet for a while. Worry filled her eyes, but also admiration. "Maya, are you sure? This is incredibly dangerous. What if she doesn't believe you?" "There's no other way," I said firmly. "This is the only way we can legally get back into that house. I'll find the opportunity to retrieve the box. As soon as we have it, we disappear immediately. I just have to act for a few days. I can do this." My determination seemed to convince Riley. She nodded, though worry remained. "All right. If you've decided, I'll support you. But promise me you'll be extremely careful. Always keep your phone on you with the recording function ready. If anything goes wrong, contact me immediately." With that, the plan was set. The next morning, I put on my oldest, most faded clothes. I deliberately left my hair messy and disheveled. I used makeup to make my face look haggard and exhausted. I instructed Riley to take care of Leo and tell him Mommy had to go away for a few days, but would be back soon. As I looked at my sleeping son, my heart clenched. "My child, wait for me. I'm going to get justice for your father, and then I'll return." I took a taxi back to the familiar street. Standing in front of the iron gate of the house that had once been mine, my heart filled with conflicting emotions. I took a deep breath, suppressed my hatred and contempt, and put on my saddest, most miserable expression. I raised my trembling hand and gently knocked on the gate. "Who is it?" Vivian's voice rang out from inside, harsh and annoyed. I didn't answer, just kept knocking. The sound became fainter and weaker. After a while, the gate opened. Vivian froze when she saw me, then frowned. "You, what are you doing here?" I said nothing, just sank to my knees right in front of her on the cement ground still damp from last night's rain. Then I burst into tears, the tears of regret and pain I'd practiced all night. "Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, please forgive me." Vivian was stunned by my action. She probably never expected the daughter-in-law she'd just thrown out would return begging like a lost dog. Her face relaxed. Surprise quickly gave way to a triumphant smile, the smile of someone superior looking down at someone inferior. So you've realized it? I thought you were stubborn. You couldn't survive out there and came crawling back here. Right? Yes. Please, Mom. Without you, without the family, I don't know how I could live. Please give me a chance. I continued sobbing, lowering my head to the ground. My performance seemed to work. Vivian was no longer aggressive. Her voice took on a condescending tone instead. All right, stand up. You can come back. But from now on, you must know your place and obey me in everything. No back talk. Can you do that? Yes. Yes, I can. I'm so grateful to you, Mom. I stood with difficulty, head bowed, not daring to look directly at her. I knew the gates of hell had opened for me again, but this time I entered not as a victim, but as a warrior secretly waiting for the moment to strike the decisive blow. The door closed behind me, and I was officially back in the place I'd sworn never to enter again just 2 days ago. The atmosphere in the house remained oppressive and cold, perhaps even more suffocating. Gerald sat in the living room reading the newspaper. When he saw me, he merely glanced over his reading glasses, then lowered his head and said nothing. His silence was more frightening than Vivian's curses. It revealed that contempt and resentment for me were deeply embedded in this man's core. What are you standing around for? Can't you see how messy the house is? Start cleaning. Vivian's voice rang out again, returning to her usual commanding tone. From now on, you'll handle everything in this house. 3 meals a day. The house must be spotless. Don't make me remind you. Yes, I understand, Mom, I replied softly, quickly putting my bag away and starting to work. The life of an unpaid servant had officially begun. Vivian seemed intent on fully exploiting my supposed repentance. She made me work from dawn until late night. Cleaning, laundry, cooking. No breaks. She intentionally created messes for me to clean and deliberately criticized my cooking to humiliate me in front of Gerald. I gritted my teeth and endured everything. Every curse, every contemptuous look was etched into my mind and became motivation to quickly find the truth. My only goal was the wooden box, but reaching it proved harder than I'd imagined. Marcus's in my bedroom, the only private space I'd had, was now occupied by Vivian. She claimed her downstairs room was too damp, and she wanted to move upstairs where it was fresher. I knew it was just an excuse. She wanted to take over my space, to erase every trace of me from this house. More importantly, she wanted control over me. I wasn't allowed to enter that room without her permission. Every time I walked past the closed bedroom door, my heart burned. The box, the only clue, was in there. Only a wall separated me from it, but it remained unreachable. I couldn't act recklessly. The slightest mistake would make Vivian suspicious, and my plan would fail. I had to be patient, wait for the right moment. I continued playing the role of the poor, understanding daughter-in-law. I worked harder, endured more, never complained. Even when Vivian intentionally spilled hot soup on my feet, I bit down hard, endured the pain, and hurriedly apologized for standing in her way. My almost subservient endurance seemed to convince her completely. She began lowering her guard. The opportunity finally came on a Saturday afternoon, about 3 days after I'd returned. That day, Vivian had an important meeting with her social circle friends. She got dressed up, instructed me to take care of the house, and left in the early afternoon. Gerald, as usual, had gone to his country club early. The large house now belonged to me alone. My heart pounded violently. This was the moment. I quickly finished all housework, making sure everything was clean and orderly. Then I crept to the second floor, heading toward the familiar bedroom. In front of the door, I took a deep breath to calm myself. Vivian had locked it. I'd expected that. I pulled a thin metal hairpin from my apron pocket, a technique I'd learned from old crime shows. I never imagined I'd actually need it. Carefully, I inserted the hairpin into the keyhole. My hand trembled. The metallic sound was deafening in the silence. I held my breath and listened. After fumbling for what felt like eternity, a faint click sounded. The door was open. Overjoyed, I quickly slipped inside and pulled the door shut behind me. The room hadn't changed much. Almost all my belongings had been removed and replaced by Vivian's things. Her cheap perfume hung heavy in the air. I didn't have much time. I went straight to the old particle board closet where I'd hidden the suitcase. I opened it. My heart sank. The suitcase wasn't there. Horrified, I searched the entire closet. Nothing. I looked around the room, but couldn't find it. Had she thrown it away? Disappointment and fear overwhelmed me. If I lost the box, all my efforts and Riley's efforts would be pointless. Every hope of finding the truth about Marcus would shatter. I was about to panic, but my reason told me to stay calm. Vivian was a greedy woman. A suitcase, even an old one, was still useful. She wouldn't just discard it. She must have hidden it somewhere. I started searching the entire room. Under the bed. Behind the curtains. Nothing. Time was running out. The clock hands were moving toward 4 p.m. Vivian would be back soon. Just at that moment, my gaze fell on the top of the closet. There was a small gap between the closet top and the ceiling, and there, covered by a thick layer of dust, lay my old suitcase. Like a treasure hunter, I quickly pulled a chair over, climbed up, and laboriously pulled the heavy suitcase down. It was heavier than I remembered. I laid it on the bed and opened it with trembling hands. My old clothes were still inside. I rummaged through everything and finally found the intricately carved wooden box wrapped in old velvet cloth at the bottom. It was still there. With the box in my hand, I felt like I was holding my husband's entire life. I opened it hastily. Inside was empty. No notebook. No key. Just a yellowed wedding photo of Marcus and me. I froze. What did this mean? Marcus's instruction, my sacrifice, all just to find an empty box? Just at that moment, I heard the familiar engine sound of Vivian's car at the front gate. She was back, and I was stuck in her locked room with an even bigger mystery I'd just uncovered. The faint jingle of keys at the front gate was clearly audible. Every sound stabbed through my taut nerves. Vivian was back. My whole body froze. My mind went blank. I was in her room. The suitcase was open on the bed. In my hand was the empty wooden box. Everything was irrefutable evidence of my intrusion. Being caught. Those two words flashed in my head, cold and terrifying. If she discovered me, everything was over. She wouldn't just throw me out again, but perhaps do something far worse. Stay calm. You must stay calm, I told myself, forcing my brain to think. The creaking sound of the iron gate opening, followed by footsteps in the yard. I didn't have much time. I hastily stuffed the clothes back into the suitcase, placed the empty box inside, and pushed the heavy suitcase back onto the closet top with all my strength. Sweat broke out across my forehead. As soon as I finished, I jumped down and quickly returned the chair to its place. But what about the door? I'd picked the lock to get in. How could I lock it again from inside? Just then, I heard Vivian talking to someone in the yard. Probably a neighbor. That gave me precious seconds. I rushed to the window and looked out. The height from the second floor wasn't too great, and there was an old corrugated metal roof below. If I jumped, it would make noise. No, that wouldn't work. I looked around the room desperately. Then my gaze fell on the wedding photo of Marcus and me. The only thing that had been in the box. A crazy but unique thought flashed. I took the photo in my trembling hand and turned it over. The backing cardboard had come loose at one corner. I carefully slid my fingernail underneath, and there, under the thin cardboard, was no notebook and no key. It was a tiny micro SD card, firmly attached to the back of the photo with transparent tape. My heart hammered wildly. This was it. The clue. Marcus hadn't deceived me. He'd hidden it where no one would suspect. Right behind our happy smiles in the wedding photo. A place both safe and meaningful. Vivian's voice was already audible on the stairs. No more time. I quickly peeled off the memory card, tucked it into my innermost jacket pocket, and put the photo back in the empty box. I had to stage a false crime scene. I ran to the door and kicked the door frame with all my might. The old wooden door burst open with a loud bang. The lock broke off. Immediately afterward, I let out a frightened scream. Thieves! Thieves! Mom! I stormed out of the room, ran down the stairs looking panicked, my hair disheveled. Vivian, who was just coming up the stairs, froze when she saw me. What? What are you saying? The room. Mom's room. There are thieves, I gasped, pointing upstairs. I heard noise, ran up, and the door was broken open. The thief just fled through the window. Mom, please check. When Vivian heard Mom's room, her face changed color. She no longer paid attention to me, but stormed up the stairs. She was afraid for her money and valuables hidden there. I stood at the foot of the stairs, my heart pounding like a drum, but I sighed with relief. The plan was successful for now. Vivian stormed into the room, saw the chaos, and rushed to the bedside table, where she knocked everything over. When she saw that her jewelry box and the bundle of cash hidden under a pile of clothes were still there, she sighed in relief. Those were probably the most valuable things to her. She turned around, saw the broken door, then looked at me with suspicious eyes. Did you see him? What did he steal? No, it was too dark. I couldn't recognize him. He ran away quickly. I stammered, maintaining my frightened expression. I don't know if anything's missing either, Mom. I saw he also rummaged through the old suitcase on the closet. When she heard suitcase, Vivian flinched but quickly calmed down. What could he have stolen from your old suitcase? She mumbled, beginning her usual complaints. This house is truly cursed. As soon as I leave, someone breaks in. With this kind of security, how is anyone supposed to live? This is all your fault, you jinx. I just lowered my head silently and let her curse. In my heart at that moment, there was only excitement. The memory card. What secret did it hold? Would it be the key to solving everything? I couldn't stay in that house another second. I lied to Vivian that I was too scared and wanted to stay at a friend's house for a few days to calm down. She was too busy dealing with the broken door and her fear of loss to stop me. I quickly left with one goal in mind: find a place where I could read the contents of the memory card. I took the last bus and traveled to an old apartment complex where Riley was already waiting. It was a small, simple room, one of the secret bases she'd prepared. Riley was there with a laptop. Are you okay? I was worried, she asked hurriedly when she saw my exhausted appearance. I'm okay. I made it, I said, trembling as I pulled the memory card from my jacket pocket. But it's not a notebook or keys. It's this. Riley took the memory card, her eyes full of surprise and tension. She inserted the card into the laptop. The screen lit up. Only a single folder appeared with the name, The Truth. My heart seemed to stop. Riley's hand trembled as she moved the mouse to open the folder. Inside were numerous video files, named sequentially. The first file was recorded exactly 3 days before Marcus's disappearance. Would the terrible truth finally come to light? The small room suddenly became oppressively tense. The laptop's faint glow illuminated both our faces, stretched tight like wire. Riley's index finger trembled, hovering over the mouse as if she didn't dare face the truth about to be revealed. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heartbeat. Open it, I said hoarsely. Riley nodded and decisively clicked the first video file. The video began without sound, only images. It was a hidden recording from a high angle, probably concealed somewhere in Marcus's home study. I immediately recognized the familiar room. The wooden desk, the bookshelf, the potted plant I'd always watered. Marcus sat across from a strange man. The man appeared to be around Gerald's age, elegantly dressed, but his face had something cunning about it. They were having a very tense conversation. Marcus repeatedly shook his head, his face resolute. The other man slammed his hand on the table, pointing his finger at Marcus. His posture radiated anger. The argument ended. The strange man walked out looking annoyed. Marcus sat there alone, leaning his head on the desk, hands clutching his hair. I could feel his extreme exhaustion and powerlessness in every gesture. The video ended abruptly. "Who is that?" I asked Riley, my heart full of confusion. "I don't know," Riley said, shaking her head. Her face showed confusion too. "I never heard our parents talk about him." We quickly opened the next videos. The subsequent clips were similar, but Marcus's conversation partners changed. Sometimes it was a rough-looking man with tattoos. Sometimes an elegantly dressed woman. They all met Marcus secretly, and every conversation ended in tension. Marcus seemed cornered by an invisible force. Then we opened the last video. It was recorded only one day before his disappearance. This time the man sitting across from Marcus was no stranger. It was Gerald Harrington, my father-in-law. In the video, Gerald laid a thick folder of documents and a plane ticket on the table. He said something and pushed them toward Marcus. Marcus didn't look at the documents. He just stared at his father, his gaze full of pain and disappointment. Then he slowly stood up, knocked over his chair, and shouted something we couldn't hear. His face was red. His hands were clenched into fists. It was the first time I'd seen him so angry. Gerald also jumped up. Father and son stood facing each other. The air was so tense I could feel it through the screen. Finally, Marcus shook his head desperately and left the study. The door slammed. Gerald sank onto the chair, holding his head in his hands. The video ended there, leaving a huge void and thousands of unanswered questions in our hearts. It was clear Marcus's disappearance wasn't only related to Vivian and the gambling debt. It was far more complex and dangerous. Gerald, the weak, silent man I'd thought harmless, was a crucial link in this entire conspiracy. What had he given Marcus? Where did the plane ticket lead? Why were they arguing so fiercely? "Maya, look here." Riley's voice trembled. She pointed to a small detail on the screen I'd overlooked. During the argument, part of the document folder Gerald had handed over was lifted by wind. The camera had managed to record a few faint lines. Riley zoomed the image in as much as possible. Although very difficult to read, we could make out 2 words. Land conveyance contract. Bellingham. Bellingham. That name hit me like lightning. I remembered that shortly before his disappearance, Marcus had told me about a large project his company was pursuing, an eco-housing development project in Bellingham. He'd poured his heart into it, staying up many nights finalizing the plan. He'd said if this project succeeded, it would be a major breakthrough in his career. But then he suddenly said the project had been canceled due to legal problems. He'd been very sad and disappointed, but I didn't ask further. Could it be? Riley and I looked at each other, the same thought in our heads. Could it be the project hadn't been canceled at all, but stolen by his own parents? And who were these strangers in this chain of intrigue? My head spun. The truth wasn't a straight line, but a tangled web of lies and crimes. I felt like a moth. The more I searched for the light, the greater the danger of being burned. "We must find the first strange man," Riley said, her voice full of determination. "He's the only one who can tell us the whole truth about the Bellingham project." But how were we supposed to find him? We only had faint video clips, no sound, no further information. Our investigation hit another dead end. While Riley and I felt helpless, a thought suddenly flashed through my mind. "Riley, look at the last video again." When Marcus knocked over the chair, did you notice if there was anything unusual on his desk? Riley rewound the video, and we both stared at the screen. Then we saw it. In the brief moment the chair fell, it revealed a small object very well hidden under the desk. A black USB flash drive fastened with tape. The black USB stick, a small, ordinary object appearing in an unusual way, was like a last glimmer of hope lighting up in the dense darkness of intrigue and lies. Riley's and my heart started racing again. Marcus had foreseen everything. He hadn't left the clue only in the wooden box, but in a place Vivian would never suspect. Right under the desk where she now often sat. "It must still be there," Riley said softly, her voice full of excitement. "My mother is meticulous, but she'd never bend down under the desk to clean. She'd only send cleaning staff, and they wouldn't notice such a small object. But how are we going to get it? I asked, worry returning. If I go back now, Vivian will surely not leave me alone. She's probably still suspicious because of the staged break-in. True. Returning to that house again was extremely dangerous. After the staged break-in, Vivian had certainly increased her vigilance. My plan to play the poor woman couldn't work a second time. We needed another plan. Bolder, more surprising. Riley thought for a moment, then snapped her fingers. Or we stage a real break-in. I looked at her, confused, not understanding her intention. Riley winked at me, a rare, mischievous smile on her lips. We won't do it ourselves. We'll have someone else do it. Have you forgotten? My parents are deeply in debt. They have many enemies. I understood what she meant. Riley's plan was extremely risky, but not unreasonable. What are you planning? Among the loan sharks my parents owe money to, there's a notorious enforcer named Tony, the Blade Sullivan. He's known for his ruthlessness. My parents have put him off several times. I'll feed him information that my parents just sold some property and are hiding a large amount of cash at home. With his greed, he won't miss this opportunity. He'll send people to break into the house and collect debts. And in the chaos, we'll have our chance. This plan made me shudder. Isn't that too dangerous? What if they harm your parents? Riley's eyes were sad for a moment, but quickly turned cold. Don't worry. People like Tony only need money. They aren't stupid enough to commit something worse and get into more trouble. Besides, that's the price they have to pay for what they did to Marcus. They cornered us, so they shouldn't blame us for resorting to drastic measures. Riley's determination convinced me. I knew that to take on old foxes, we sometimes had to be more ruthless than them. In the following days, we began to act. Riley used her underworld contacts to feed information to Tony Sullivan's crew. Just as she'd predicted, Tony's people began observing my in-laws' house within a day. Everything was going according to plan. My task was to prepare for our own break-in. I couldn't go alone. I needed someone who could distract and provide backup. The person I thought of was Marcus's close friend who'd been helping Riley all this time. His name was Nathan Cross, a talented engineer who was also quick-thinking and brave. After hearing Riley's entire story, Nathan immediately agreed to help. He said he owed Marcus a lifelong debt. Finally, the decisive night came. It was a night without moon or stars. The whole street was plunged into darkness and silence. According to Riley's information, Tony would strike that night. Around 1 a.m., a small unmarked van quietly stopped at the end of the alley. Two masked men in black clothing jumped out, quickly climbed over the fence, and disappeared into Vivian Harrington's yard. "They're inside," Nathan whispered through the small walkie-talkie we'd prepared. He was sitting in a car on the opposite side of the street, observing every movement. "We're ready," I replied. My heart pounded wildly. Riley and I hid in a small alley behind the house, directly under the study window. Only minutes later, we heard the loud sound of breaking glass from the front, followed by Vivian's panicked screaming. "Thieves! Robbers! Help me!" The plan had begun. Nathan immediately called the local police and reported a robbery. At the same time, Riley called Vivian's landline with another cell phone. Vivian, who was panicking, answered the phone hoping someone was calling to help. "Hello, help me." "Shut your mouth, old woman." Riley's voice, modified by voice changer software, sounded threatening. "I'm from Tony Sullivan. Your husband owes us money. We came today to get our money back. If you scream again, things will get much worse for you." When Vivian heard the threat, she fell silent. She stammered fearfully. "How much do you want?" "All the cash and all the valuables in the house. Cooperate, or it will be very bad." Riley growled and hung up. Riley's distraction maneuver was successful, drawing all attention to the front. Meanwhile, on the back of the house, I quickly climbed onto the second-floor balcony with a small rope ladder Nathan had prepared. I slipped through the study window, which I'd cautiously left slightly ajar during my previous visit. The room was pitch dark, but I knew my way around. I didn't turn on the light, only used the faint glow of my mini flashlight and quickly went to the desk. I knelt down, reached my hand under the desk, and my heart stopped. It was still there. The small, cold USB stick lay in my palm. I was close to tears of joy, but this wasn't the moment. I had to get out immediately. But just as I prepared to climb out, a faint click sounded from the door. Someone was opening the door to the room. The dry click of the lock echoed in the silence, sharp as a stab through my nerve-racked thoughts. My whole body froze. My breathing seemed to stop. Someone was entering the room. I was on the second floor. The only exit was through the window, but climbing out now would be like confessing to breaking in. And who was opening the door? One of the two robbers or Gerald. No matter who it was, being discovered at that moment would mean everything would fail. In this life-threatening moment, I didn't hesitate. I rushed under the desk, rolled myself into the most hidden corner. The heavy wooden table was covered with a long cloth that reached the floor, which fortunately concealed my body. I held my breath. My heart hammered in my chest, and I just prayed the person wouldn't discover me. The door opened slowly. Light from the hallway poured in, revealing a tall silhouette. It wasn't the robbers. It wasn't Gerald either. It was a completely strange man. Exactly the one who'd appeared in the first video. The cunning man who'd argued with Marcus. Why was he here at this exact moment? He didn't come alone. Behind him was one of Tony Sullivan's enforcers. "Boss, everything's going according to plan," the enforcer said as he closed the door. His voice was respectful. "Boss." I froze. This strange man was the mastermind behind everything, not Tony Sullivan. It turned out Riley and I had inadvertently poked a bigger hornet's nest than we thought. Our plan to use someone else had been exploited by another player and turned into a game within a game. "Good," said the man who was called the boss. His voice was deep and radiated power and cruelty. "The money is secondary. Did you find what I need?" "Not yet, boss. I searched the old woman's bedroom, but found nothing except money and jewelry." "Fool. What do I care about her money and jewelry?" The man snarled. "It must be in this room." Marcus was clever. He hid the evidence somewhere here. "Search thoroughly. If you don't find it, you'll regret it." Evidence. So this man was also looking for the evidence Marcus had left behind. Our goal was the same. I lay under the desk. Cold sweat ran down my back. I clutched the USB stick tightly in my palm. The thing they were desperately searching for was right here, separated from them only by a thin layer of wood. The enforcer began to ransack the room. He pulled out drawers, threw papers and notebooks onto the floor. The loud noise made me flinch. "Boss, there's nothing here. Just old papers," the enforcer said after a while. The boss cursed. He paced back and forth in the room. The sound of his leather shoes on the wooden floor sounded heavy and ominous. "Damn it, where did that guy hide it? It can't just vanish. If that comes to light, we're all finished." He stopped right in front of the desk, separated from me only by the long tablecloth. I could smell the scent of his expensive cigar smoke. My heart threatened to jump out of my chest. Suddenly, the wail of police sirens sounded from a distance, getting closer and closer. "Damn it, the police." The enforcer panicked. "Boss, what do we do now?" The boss also looked confused. "What is Tony doing? Why did he call the cops?" "Fine, we'll retreat for now. We didn't find anything today. Go downstairs and tell the other guy to escape through the back exit. Hurry." The enforcer hastily opened the door and disappeared. The boss didn't leave immediately. He stayed put. His gaze, sharp as a knife, scanned the room one more time. He looked at the bookshelf, at the pictures on the wall, and then he bent down and looked under the desk. His gaze and mine met through the small gap in the tablecloth. For a moment, the whole world seemed to stand still. He saw me. His eyes widened in shock, then immediately changed to a deadly, cruel expression. "You." He hadn't finished the sentence. I kicked the desk leg with all my strength. The heavy wooden table was shoved forward and slammed hard against his shin. He screamed in pain, staggering back. I seized the opportunity, crawled out from under the desk, didn't think for a second, and rushed straight to the window. "Stop!" he roared behind me. I had no other choice. I climbed onto the windowsill, closed my eyes, and jumped. The impact on the corrugated metal roof below hurt terribly, but I dared not stop. I crawled over the roof, slid down the incline, and jumped into the small alley behind. I didn't know if I was injured. I only knew I had to run as fast as I could. The police sirens were very close now. Behind me, I could still hear the furious cursing of the man. I ran like a possessed person, not daring to look back. My whole body ached, but fear drowned everything out. I ran to our meeting point where Riley and Nathan were waiting in the car. "Maya, are you all right?" Riley was horrified when she saw me. Drive fast," I gasped, clutching the USB stick tightly. The car sped through the night, leaving behind the chaotic house and a partially revealed secret. Who was this man? Why did he know about the evidence Marcus had left behind? And did he have something to do with my husband's disappearance? The USB stick in my hand was now not only hope, but also deadly evidence. The car sped through the night, taking us away from the turbulent street. I sat in the back seat, leaning against the backrest, trying to calm my gasping breath. My whole body still trembled, not from cold but from shock and extreme fear. The image of that foreign man's cruel eyes haunted me, cold and deadly. "Maya, are you okay? Are you hurt?" Nathan asked anxiously through the rearview mirror as he drove. I shook my head weakly. "No, just some scrapes." I pushed up my sleeve. A long scratch was bleeding slightly from the friction with the corrugated metal roof, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the panic in my soul. "Who are they? Who was that man?" I asked. "We were played," Riley said, sitting in the passenger seat. Her face was extremely tense. "Our plan was exploited by someone else. This man is much more dangerous than my parents." We returned to Riley's safe apartment. As soon as we were inside, Nathan immediately checked the security system. Riley got the first aid kit to carefully disinfect and bandage my wounds. When I saw her concern and kindness, a warm feeling flowed through me. Amidst the misfortune, I wasn't alone. "Tell us what happened in there," Riley asked after making sure I was all right. I took a deep breath and told the entire story. From the moment I broke into the study to the moment of confrontation with the strange man, and my last-minute escape. When I told them how the man ordered the enforcer to look for evidence, both Nathan's and Riley's faces changed color. "So this man is also looking for it," Nathan said, holding the USB stick I'd given him. His eyes were full of thought. "That proves the content in here is extremely important. Maybe it's the key to many people's lives." Without hesitation, he plugged the USB stick into the laptop. This time we weren't excited or eager, but tense and anxious. We knew what we were about to see could be a terrible secret. The USB stick didn't contain many files. Only a single audio file and an encrypted text file. Nathan opened the audio file first. A dialogue sounded, this time much clearer, probably recorded with a professional device. I immediately recognized the voices of 3 people: Marcus, Gerald, and the strange man. "Marcus, don't be so stubborn," Gerald said pleadingly, mixed with fear. "Give the original plans and all documents back to Mr. Russo. You can't win against him." "Mr. Russo? Who is that?" I looked at Riley, but she shook her head too. "I won't give them up," Marcus's voice said sharply, full of indignation. "Dad, this isn't just a project. It's my life's work. Why are you betraying me? Why are you selling it to someone like him? What do you know?" The voice of the man named Russo rang out, condescending and arrogant. "Business means you use whatever tactics necessary. You're talented, but you're too naive. This project will become a goldmine in my hands. In yours, it's just worthless papers. Listen to your father. Take this money and disappear with your wife and son. Consider it a way to save your life. I don't need your money. I will report you. And Dad too. Fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, all the things you've done," Marcus shouted. A long silence followed. Then Russo's voice sounded icy cold and terrifying. "Do you think you have a chance? Don't you know who I am? Fine. If you want to make this difficult, I'll accommodate you. Gerald, I'm giving you 1 week to handle your son. If not, I'll make your whole family's life hell. The recording ended there, leaving a deadly silence in the room. My whole body trembled. So it was clear. The strange man named Russo was the mastermind. He'd teamed up with my own father-in-law to steal Marcus's beloved project. And when Marcus refused, he'd ordered Gerald to handle his own son. Marcus's disappearance was no longer speculation. It was planned. Tears rolled down my cheeks again, but this time they were tears of extreme hatred. Nathan gently patted my shoulder to comfort me. Maya, don't cry. We have to be strong. Marcus sacrificed to protect this evidence. We must not disappoint him. He turned to the computer screen. Now we have to see what the other file contains. The text file was very complexly encrypted. Nathan, with his professional hacking skills, needed almost an hour to break through the firewall. When the first lines appeared, we all held our breath. It wasn't a project plan. It was a testament Marcus had written with all his clarity and pain. To Maya, my beloved wife. If you're reading these lines, I'm probably no longer among the living. The letter began with loving words. He apologized for not being able to protect me and give me a fulfilling life. Then he told the whole truth. The Bellingham Housing Development Project, his child, wasn't just an ordinary real estate project. It was a green project using the most advanced renewable energy technologies. A project that could change the face of the entire region. But precisely because of this enormous potential, Vincent Russo, a notorious real estate mogul with criminal underworld connections, had set his sights on it. Russo had used his contacts and dirty methods to put pressure on and force Gerald's firm to sell the project at a bargain price. And Gerald, out of fear of Russo's power and greed for short-term profit, had agreed to betray his own son's life's work. Marcus had found out. He'd tried to prevent it and collected evidence about Russo's illegal activities, from money laundering and tax evasion to threats and seizing land from local landowners. He hadn't expected his father, whom he'd always respected, could become so cruel because of money. Marcus's handwriting expressed deep pain. He has chosen to stand on the side of evil. He gave me a plane ticket and a large amount of money, demanding I leave the country and forget everything. But I can't do that. I can't close my eyes to crime. I can't leave you alone. I've decided to stay and fight until the end. And at the end of the letter, there was a paragraph that made my whole body freeze. Maya, if something happens to me, trust no one in my family. Not even Riley. Not even Riley. The last lines in Marcus's testament hit my mind like an invisible sledgehammer. My whole body froze. My breathing seemed to stop. I slowly raised my head, my gaze confused and suspicious, and stared at the young woman sitting right next to me. Riley, the sister-in-law I'd just given my full trust to, the only ally I thought I had. Was she also part of this cruel game? Riley was no less stunned. She stared at the lines on the laptop screen. Her face went chalk white, not a drop of blood left. No, he can't be serious, she stammered, her voice trembling. Marcus, why did he write that? What did I do wrong? Nathan, sitting next to her, was also frozen. The entire room fell into stifling silence. But this time the silence wasn't one of unity but of distrust, of an invisible wall that had just been erected between us. I looked at Riley, trying to find a sign of falsehood in her eyes, but all I saw was panic, hurt, and extreme pain. She was also shocked, unable to believe her brother, whom she loved so much, could distrust her. I don't know anything. I swear it, Maya. Riley broke down weeping. Tears of anger ran down her cheeks. For 3 years I searched for the truth alone. I hate my parents. I hate Russo. I just want justice for my brother. Why didn't he trust me? The pain in her voice was too real. It didn't sound like acting. But Marcus's last words, the words of a man facing death, couldn't be a joke either. There must be a reason, a problem Riley herself was unaware of. Please calm down, said Nathan, who was the first to regain composure. He looked at me, then at Riley. Marcus wrote these lines when he was cornered. Maybe he discovered something that made him distrust everyone. We can't condemn Riley based on a single sentence. There must be a reason. Nathan's words helped me calm down. Right. I couldn't panic. The most important thing now was to find the reason for Marcus's warning. Riley, try to remember. I tried to keep my voice steady. Did anything happen between you and Marcus shortly before he disappeared? Or did you unintentionally pass on information to your parents? Riley sobbed, trying to rummage through her memories. No, nothing. Everything between him and me was normal. He even gave me a large amount of money and told me to go on vacation for a while, to distract myself, not to stay home. He said something unpleasant would soon happen. I thought he was just being overcautious. She paused, her eyes widening as if something occurred to her. Oh yes, one thing happened. About 2 weeks before he left, I lost my cell phone. You lost your cell phone? Nathan and I asked simultaneously. Yes. Riley nodded, her face full of regret. I was at a bar with friends that day and drank a little too much. The next morning when I woke up, my phone was gone. I searched everywhere but couldn't find it. I just thought I'd been careless or it had been stolen. I immediately got a new SIM card. A lost cell phone. This detail seemed small, but in this situation it could be the most important link. The phone wasn't lost, Nathan said, his voice becoming sharp. It was stolen, and the thieves were your parents. They read all the messages. They knew Marcus suspected them. They even knew he was collecting evidence. And they also knew you were the only person he trusted. And that's why, I continued, my throat constricted. That's why Marcus thought you had betrayed him and passed the secret on to your parents. The warning wasn't because he hated you, but because he was so hurt when he thought even his sister, whom he trusted most, was on the side of the enemies. When Riley heard that, she collapsed with her face on the table, sobbing. Injustice and regret tormented her. Just because of a moment of carelessness, she'd unintentionally put her brother in a more dangerous situation and had to carry the unjust stigma of a traitor for 3 years. I put my hand on her shoulder to comfort her. It's not your fault. You're also a victim. Now isn't the time to blame yourself. We know the truth. What we have to do now is make the criminals pay the price, exonerate you, and get justice for Marcus. The truth was revealed. The distrust between us was resolved. Now we were even more closely connected and determined. But a bigger question remained. Was Marcus really gone, or just missing as Russo had suggested? And if he was still alive, where was he? The question of whether Marcus was still alive hung heavily in the oppressive air. Deep down, I always held a tiny spark of hope, a persistent belief he was still somewhere in this world, waiting for us to find him. But reason told me that given Russo's cruelty and his own parents' complicity, the chance of survival was almost zero. We can't just guess here, Nathan said, breaking the stifling silence. He pointed to the laptop screen where the audio file of the conversation between Marcus and Russo was still open. The key is here. Russo said, I'm giving you 1 week to handle him. Handle can have many meanings. It doesn't necessarily mean kill. Nathan's words were like fresh wind reigniting the flame of hope in Riley and me. Right. Handle could mean hold him, threaten him, force him to silence. But if he's still alive, where have my parents been hiding him for the past 3 years? Riley asked skeptically. They alone weren't capable of doing something that big, I said. An ice-cold guess formed in my head. But Russo could be. He's the mastermind. Maybe Gerald didn't dare end his own son's life. He handed Marcus over to Russo, and Russo is probably holding him captive. This guess was terrible but logical. It explained why there was no trace of Marcus, why a powerful man like Russo personally had to come looking for evidence. He wasn't only afraid his business secrets would be revealed, but also afraid his crime of kidnapping would come to light. If that's true, we have to find the place where Russo is holding Marcus captive, Nathan said, his face very serious. But he's an old fox. His movements are very secretive. It won't be easy to find his secret location. Our investigation hit another dead end. We had evidence of economic crimes, but not a single clue about where Marcus might be held. Time passed, and with each day, hope diminished. Just at the moment when we felt most desperate, Riley received a call. The number belonged to a private clinic in Portland, Oregon. Her facial expression changed from surprise to shock. "Hello, what?" "My mother had an accident." She quickly switched to speakerphone. On the other end was the voice of a nurse. "Yes. Is this the family of Mrs. Vivian Harrington? The patient had a traffic accident with quite serious injuries and is currently being treated in our clinic as an emergency. We need family to come immediately to handle formalities." Nathan and I looked at each other, stunned. Vivian had an accident? Why in Portland, Oregon? What was she doing there? A gut feeling told me this was no coincidence. "We'll come right away," Riley answered hurriedly and hung up. She turned to me, her gaze complicated. "Maya, I have to go. Despite everything, she's my mother." I understood her dilemma. No matter how much she hated her mother, she was still the woman who'd given birth to her. "All right, go. But be very careful. Something doesn't feel right here." "Portland, Oregon. I find it strange too." Riley nodded. "But I can't not go. Nathan, please stay here with Maya. I'll let you know immediately if there's anything new." With that, she quickly got dressed and left. As I watched her hurried departure, a bad feeling rose within me. I felt Riley was walking into a trap that had already been set. After Riley left, only Nathan and I remained in the room. Worry about Riley and the dead end in searching for Marcus made the atmosphere oppressive. "Maya, think again," Nathan said, trying to find a new direction. "Did Marcus leave you anything else besides this USB stick? A gift? A souvenir? A casual word?" I tried to rack my memory. Other than the wooden box, he didn't give me anything special. Wait. About a month before his disappearance, it was my birthday. He gave me a rather strange gift. No flowers, no jewelry, but a small cactus. "A cactus?" Nathan frowned. "Was it anything special?" "I don't know either," I admitted. "It was just a normal cactus, the kind with long spines and red flowers." He said the cactus symbolized strength and perseverance. He wished I would always be steadfast no matter what difficulties I went through. I took it with me when I left the house. It's now on Riley's windowsill in this apartment. My words seemed to catch Nathan's attention. He hurried to the balcony where I'd placed the plant. He looked at it for a while, then suddenly cried, "Maya, come here." I quickly ran over. Nathan pointed to a cactus spine near the base of the plant. The spine looked normal, but when I looked closely, I noticed it was different from the others. It wasn't as sharp, and its color was slightly darker. Nathan used a small pair of tweezers to carefully remove the spine. Then we couldn't believe our eyes. It wasn't a spine. It was a tiny piece of metal perfectly disguised. And when Nathan carefully opened it, inside was a GPS tracking chip. The GPS chip, a small, almost invisible electronic device, was so cleverly hidden in the spine of a cactus. Nathan and I were stunned, standing frozen for several seconds. My head spun. I tried to connect the events. Marcus was always thinking ahead. He'd planned everything. The seemingly simple birthday gift was in fact a lifeline, a secret path he'd left for himself. "My God, Marcus, he's really too smart," Nathan exclaimed, his voice full of admiration mixed with surprise. "He foresaw he might be kidnapped. He hid this chip hoping you'd find it one day. But why a cactus? Why didn't he tell me directly?" I asked, my heart full of questions. "Because he couldn't," Nathan explained, his face very serious. "At that time, Marcus knew he was being monitored. Every call, every message could be intercepted. He couldn't say it directly because it would have put you in danger too. He could only use symbolism, a way only you, his wife, could understand. The cactus symbolizes strength and perseverance, and perhaps also a place that is dry and remote." Nathan's explanation was like a ray of light shining into the last dark corners. I understood. I understood Marcus's heart. He didn't just want me to be strong. He wanted me to look for him, to save him. "We have to activate it immediately," I said eagerly. We have to find out where he is. Nathan didn't hesitate. He quickly connected the chip to the laptop. With a few professional maneuvers, a digital map appeared on the screen, and a small red dot began to flash, slowly appearing on the map. We both held our breath, staring at the screen. The red dot wasn't in Seattle, nor in Bellingham. It was located in a remote coastal region in Oregon near Portland. Portland, Oregon. My heart clenched. Vivian's accident, the call from the clinic in Portland. All of it was no coincidence. It was a trap to lure Riley there, to separate her from me while they moved Marcus somewhere else. Riley is in danger, I screamed. Fear flooded me. Nathan also realized the seriousness. He quickly called Riley, but her phone was unreachable. Damn it, Nathan slammed his fist on the table. They struck. We have to go there immediately. But just the two of us isn't enough, I said, panicking. The place is surely heavily guarded. What should we do? Call the police? But we don't have direct evidence. We don't need that, Nathan said. His gaze suddenly sharpened, completely different from his usual demeanor. He took out his cell phone and dialed a strange number. Hello, is this Uncle Frank? This is Nathan. It's an emergency. Marcus is being held in Portland, Oregon. I'm sending you the coordinates immediately. Riley is also in danger there. I need your help. This time we have to give everything. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then a deep voice sounded. Gather at the old meeting place in 30 minutes. Bring everything. The call ended. I looked at Nathan, confused. Uncle Frank. Equipment? Nathan, who are you really? Nathan looked at me and sighed. Maya, there are things I can't tell you yet. Marcus and I aren't just friends. We're brothers in another organization. Uncle Frank is the leader. You just need to know that today, even if we have to turn all of Portland upside down, we'll bring Marcus and Riley back safely. The secret in Nathan's words made me even more confused, but his determined and trustworthy eyes calmed me down. I knew I was no longer a lonely woman. Behind me stood an entire force I'd never known existed. Marcus's brothers, who'd been through thick and thin with him. We had no time to lose. Nathan quickly copied all the data from the USB stick onto an external hard drive and gave it to me. Maya, you can't come with us. It's too dangerous. Take this and go to a safe place I've arranged and wait for our message. No, I said resolutely. Marcus is my husband. Riley is my sister-in-law. I can't wait idly. I have to come with you. I looked him directly in the eyes. Nathan, I won't stand in your way. Let me at least be nearby. I need to see them safe with my own eyes. My determination finally convinced Nathan. He nodded. All right, but you must promise to follow my instructions absolutely. We stormed out of the apartment, speeding into the Seattle night. A breathless rescue mission was about to begin. Nathan's car sped down the highway toward Portland, Oregon. The night sky was pitch black and heavy, as if a storm was about to break. The location where Marcus and Riley were being held was an abandoned warehouse complex on a cliff overlooking the Columbia River, completely isolated from residential areas. When we arrived, almost a dozen men in dark tactical gear with cold faces were already waiting. Where's Uncle Frank? Nathan asked. The man who looked like the leader shook his head. Uncle Frank said he had something more important to handle. We'll just stick to the plan. The plan was quickly drawn up. They split into two assault teams. One team attacked directly to distract. The other, led by Nathan, sneaked along the cliff wall at the back to infiltrate. I was instructed to stay in the car and watch through a screen connected to a drone camera. The assault began. Muted shots with silencers echoed through the night. The camera screen trembled. I held my breath, following every step of Nathan's team. They moved professionally and coordinatedly like in an action film. They quickly neutralized the outer guards and entered the warehouse. But just as Nathan's team was breaking down the main door, a loud explosion sounded from inside. The whole structure shook. They're going to destroy everything. Nathan yelled over the radio. Everyone in. Find them immediately. My heart threatened to jump out of my chest. I couldn't stand idly by any longer. I opened the car door and ran toward the smoking warehouse. I had to find them. Inside, there was chaos. Furniture was scattered. Russo's guards lay motionless on the floor. I ran through the corridors, desperately calling their names. Marcus, Riley, and then at the end of a corridor, I saw a slightly ajar basement door. Without hesitation, I rushed down the basement stairs. The stairs were dark and damp. When I reached the bottom, a terrible sight met me. Riley was tied to a support pillar, her mouth gagged. Not far away, an emaciated, bearded man lay on an old metal cot. Russo stood there, a pistol pointed at the man's head. Next to him stood Gerald and Vivian. Everyone freeze. Russo shouted as he saw Nathan's team and me rush in. Take one more step and your beloved son is gone. Although the man on the cot had changed dramatically, I recognized his eyes, his gaze. It was Marcus. He was still alive. Mom, Dad, why are you here? Riley stammered after the gag was removed from her mouth. You foolish child, Vivian hissed. The accident was just a setup to lure you here. All to get your beloved sister-in-law to hand over the evidence. It turned out everything had been a trap from the beginning. A trap aimed at all three of us. The damp, oppressive basement suddenly became a deadly stage. The only yellowish light of a ceiling fixture cast distorted, ominous shadows on the walls. The pungent smell of gunpowder mixed with the scent of mold and fear. I stood there confronted by Russo's black gun muzzle, and behind him stood all the people who'd plunged my life into tragedy. Gerald, Vivian, and the man I'd longed for lay there, weak and fragile like a candle in the wind. You're very clever, Russo smirked, the smile of a man who thought he'd secured victory. You made it this far, but the road ends here. Hand over the USB stick and all copies. Then I'll let your husband and you have a quick end. Let him go, Nathan roared behind me. He and his team had taken positions, weapons loaded, but no one dared make a reckless move as long as Marcus was held hostage. The situation was tense as a tightly stretched wire. Every small movement could trigger a bloodbath. Maya, don't do it. Don't give him anything. Marcus's weak voice rang out. Although he'd been held captive for 3 years, though his body was weakened, his gaze at me was still resolute. The evidence must come to light. You're still so stubborn. Russo pressed the gun muzzle harder against Marcus's temple, making him flinch in pain. I'll count to 3. If you don't throw the USB stick over, he gets it first. 1. My whole body trembled. I looked at Nathan, pleading for help. He shook his head slightly, signaling me to stay calm. 2. Stop. I screamed, my voice broken. All right, I'll give it to you. Don't hurt him. Trembling, I took the external hard drive from my pocket and slowly placed it on the floor. Here it is. Let him go. Russo laughed wildly, a cruel laugh. Do you think I'm stupid? Kick it over here. I did what he said, lightly pushing the hard drive with my foot across the cement floor toward him. One of Russo's men hurriedly bent down and picked it up. He plugged it into a prepared laptop. Boss, this is it. All the data is here. Good. Very good. Russo nodded, his face triumphant. He looked at me, his eyes full of mockery. Love is really something stupid. For a dying man, you're ready to throw everything away. Now, as a reward for your obedience, I'll let you both go together. He raised the pistol and aimed directly at me. I closed my eyes. Only the image of little Leo appeared in my mind. My child, I'm sorry. A deafening shot rang out, but not from Russo's weapon. I flinched, feeling no pain. I slowly opened my eyes. The pistol in Russo's hand had fallen to the floor. His arm was bleeding. He stared, stunned at the basement stairs where the shot had come from. Everyone turned around. There, out of the darkness, stood a middle-aged man, composed, but his eyes sharp as knives. In his hand he held a handgun that was still smoking. Uncle Frank, Nathan cried in astonishment. The man referred to as Uncle Frank said nothing, just slowly descended the stairs. Behind him, dozens of heavily armed federal agents stormed in and quickly overwhelmed all of Russo's men. "Russo, the show is over," Uncle Frank said. His voice was deep and full of authority. Russo looked at Uncle Frank, his face chalk white. "You? Who are you?" "Just an old friend." Uncle Frank smiled faintly. "Someone who's been watching you for 20 years and waited for this day to collect an old debt." Gerald and Vivian turned pale when they saw the situation had changed. They hastily knelt down, weeping and pleading. "Spare us. We were forced. This is all Russo's fault. We have nothing to do with it." But it was too late. The agents came and put handcuffs on them. Vivian didn't stop screaming and cursing me as the curse who'd ruined their entire family. Gerald only lowered his head and silently accepted his fate. In the chaos, I quickly ran to Marcus. He'd passed out from exhaustion. Nathan and the others also quickly freed Riley. Our reunion took place amidst tears and the wailing police sirens. A few days later, when everything had calmed down, Uncle Frank told me the whole truth. It turned out he wasn't only the leader of the organization Nathan and Marcus belonged to. He was also the biological brother of one of the victims who'd been killed in a construction accident years ago. An incident also caused by Russo to silence witnesses. For 20 years, he'd secretly collected evidence and built up his own network just to one day overthrow Russo's criminal empire. Marcus had accidentally come into contact with him during his investigation into his own father. The two men with the same goal decided to work together. So Marcus's disappearance was part of the plan, Uncle Frank explained. Marcus knew he couldn't confront Russo and his own father directly. He pretended to surrender and allowed himself to be captured to set a perfect trap. He believed only his supposed demise could lower Russo's vigilance. And more importantly, wake you up, Maya. He knew that only love and the pain of loss could make a gentle woman like you strong enough to search for the truth yourself. I froze. Tears rolled down my cheeks again. It turned out everything. My pain, my despair, my path to justice was all included in his plan. He'd risked his own life, betting on our love and my strength. And the hard drive was fake, Uncle Frank smiled. He'd already sent the original to the FBI when you found it. What you gave Russo was just bait to buy time. The trial against Russo and his accomplices proceeded quickly. With irrefutable evidence, Russo received the maximum sentence. Gerald and Vivian also paid the price for their crimes with long prison terms. 1 year later, on a sunny afternoon in Bellingham, Washington, I sat on the shore watching two figures, one tall and one small, playing with the waves. Little Leo laughed loudly in his father's arms. Marcus had almost fully recovered after long therapy. The physical wounds were healed, but the scars on his soul might never completely fade. "Mommy, come here and play with Daddy and me." Leo's call brought me back to the present. I smiled, stood up, and ran toward them. Marcus turned around, opened his arms, and hugged me and our son. "I'm sorry," he whispered in my ear. "I'm sorry I had to put you through all of that." I shook my head and leaned against his shoulder. "It doesn't matter. Everything is over. The most important thing is our family is back together now." Riley and Nathan had also become a couple. They decided to leave the intensity of their past behind and start a small technology consulting firm together to live a peaceful life. I occasionally visited Vivian in prison. She'd aged greatly, lost her former malice, and was only quiet and lonely. She said nothing, just cried. I also said nothing, just silently placed a basket of fruit down and left. Forgiveness is difficult, but letting go is perhaps the true path to peace. The sun slowly sank toward the horizon, coloring the entire sky in warm orange and gold. I looked at my husband and my son, my heart filled with simple happiness. The storm was truly over. After everything, we'd found the sunrise for our own lives. A sunrise without lies, without hatred, only with love and faith in tomorrow. I'll speak to you from my own heart now. After everything I've lived through, the betrayals, the fear, the secrets that nearly crushed me, I realized something important. Life has a way of pushing us into the dark, so we learn how to create our own light. No one came to save me. I had to take that first brave step myself. And sometimes that's all it takes to change the whole story. So if you're going through something heavy, don't let anyone convince you that you're powerless. You'd be amazed at the strength you discover once you decide you deserve better.